So I wanted to make a quick little video to explain one of the worst discoveries I think I have ever made when it comes to map making in this game. Now, for those of you who don't know, making GUIs in Minecraft Java is a very powerful tool to convey to a player playing your map more advanced mechanics that are probably not best suited for giant button walls or other ways of conveying complex options. Not to mention, it's a much more immersive and vanilla adjacent mechanic that more players will be familiar with. However, in Java Edition, unlike Bedrock Edition, there is no support for custom GUIs. To my knowledge, Bedrock has some kind of integrated custom GUI system where Java has no such thing. Us map makers in Java have to go to much greater lengths and replace elements of vanilla as well as other things to kind of spoof our own GUIs, and it's a much more complicated task. So, excuse me. To do this, we have to do all sorts of things, but one of them is putting our own textures into chests, which can be simple at times, but for the more complicated things, you will need stuff such as shaders. So right here, I have a shader that applies with the blindness effect, where the texture in a chest is removed. This applies to chests, ender chests, and barrels, anything that uses this kind of basic storage UI, and it may look like nothing has changed, but that's just because there is an item in this corner that's spoofing that texture. If I go ahead and turn this shader off now, you'll see that the comes back, and the shader is what turns it off. And this is great. This is very useful. And with this, I can now put my own texture onto this or do other things to simulate the GUI I'm going for. However, I also don't want to get rid of the vanilla GUI, so I use the blindness effect to know when to actually remove this specific texture. So that's great. Apply a blindness effect when you open the container. That's very easy. There's multiple ways to detect when you open a GUI, such as this scoreboard right here for opening an ender chest. That applies to, or there's variants of that for normal chests and basically anything you can interact with. There's also different advancement triggers, which are kind of more optimal, quote-unquote, way of doing it. So all I need to do is detect when the score goes up and apply the blindness effect to the player. Now, that's simple. But what's not simple is detecting when they close the GUI, because obviously at some point, the player is going to naturally close it with escape or E, or whatever their inventory button is bound to, and at that point, I need to remove the blindness so they're not walking around in the world of the dark. And that may sound simple, okay? Just check when they close the GUI. But there is no such provided feature in Minecraft. Not only is there no scoreboard for closing GUIs, there's no advancement, and there's no NBT data in the player's actual player data that reflects whether they have a GUI open or not. There is one really fringe way of detecting it, and it's with barrels. If I go ahead and open F3 here, you'll see on the right, the barrels have an open state. Open it here, you'll see that false turns to a true, and vice versa. Now, that's all well and good. There's just one slight problem with that, and that's not player-specific. A GUI that is player-specific is ender chests, and I have some invisible ones right here. You might be able to see the box outlines. Those are very nice for menus because they're player-specific. Every player has their own ender chest, so they can all players can have different states to it, which means they can be in different menus and yada yada yada. So I can't use that fringe barrel detection, and to everyone I talk to, a bunch of really talented, really skilled, really knowledgeable people in Java map making, nobody thought it was possible to detect closing an inventory. So I went on an 3-day, completely sleep-deprived fuel expedition to try to find some way to detect it, because surely there was something in this game. I tried all sorts of weird things. I tried picking up items in creative, and I tried loyalty tridents and villager GUIs, and it was completely fruitless until I got to powdered snow. Now, the thing about powdered snow is when you, excuse me, I didn't actually put the powdered snow back here. We'll get to that in a second, but the thing about powdered snow is when you walk through it, it's completely non-solid. You gotta walk on it, it's non-solid. Except if you're wearing leather boots, which I am. Let me go ahead and turn off the resource pack here. So you'll see I am wearing leather boots. Go ahead and walk on the snow. It's seemingly solid. If I take these off, I can't stand on it anymore. I just get stuck trying to jump out of it. So the obscure piece of information I discovered is that if you are in a GUI, such as a chest, and the boots get removed from you, say by this command right here, which gets rid of my feet armor slot, as you can see, nothing happens. Nothing looks different. But what you don't see is that those boots, while being technically removed from my player, I'm still standing on the powdered snow. When I close the GUI by hitting escape or E, I fall through the snow. That's weird, because I would swear that the boots were gone already. And grab another pair of other boots here and put those on. So it would turn out that when you have a GUI like a chest open, obviously there's no armor slots in here. So it would seem to me that the game doesn't bother updating your actual armor until you close the GUI. A sort of ghost item is created in your inventory. So despite the boots being gone, the client doesn't really realize this until you close the GUI. So therefore, since as far as I'm aware, gravity is calculated client side, it thinks I'm perfectly fine standing on this snow. So, if the boots are removed while I have a GUI open, and then I close the GUI, I fall through. That's a way to detect that the player has closed the GUI. Now, I want to be clear, this is a bug, and it's something to do with ghost equipment from the people I talk to and are more knowledgeable about these kind of things. So I have to exploit a bug to do this detection, and I want to make it clear I hate doing this, but it's the only method I found, and if any Mojang dev happens to see this video, by God, please give us some way to detect normally that a GUI is closed, whether that be a scoreboard, an advancement, or a piece of MBT data on the player. Whatever works, it would certainly be more intuitive and less of a bug abuse situation than powdered snow. So, allow me to put the resource pack back on. Here is that all coming together. So, with this powdered snow being fake, this is actually an item frame that I have set to render an entire blocks model. So you saw there was some snow here a minute ago, and now it's just bedrock. But it's actually an item frame with a bedrock block in it to simulate the ground still being here. So if I go ahead and switch to survival and right-click on my GUI here, I get placed on this block. This is just a dev texture. You'll have to ignore that. And if you watch really closely, when I hit escape here, you'll see that I'll bob down really quickly. Might have been hard to notice. Let me do it one more time. So what I do is detect when the player loses Y value when they have this GUI open. When they do, I do the necessary things like re-equipping them with their boots and removing the blindness effect. So that is the no good, terrible discovery I have made for detecting GUI closing. Really weird, exploiting a bug, and I really wish this game had a proper way to detect it, because this could be fixed at any version and I could be completely out of luck. So again, if Mojang Dev sees this video, proper detection, please. Thank you.